good day. Welcome to the CORY Morgan Show. We haven't been shut down yet by the new Mark Carney majority. Welcome to the new Canada. Something to look forward to, right? Interesting times. Let's see. Well, lots of other things to cover. You know, I actually was going to have a senator on. In fact, 2 weeks ago, I was going to have a senator on. And then today I was going to have a senator on. But you know, I try to be nice. I've been critical of senators, but I thought maybe they're doing something reasonable, decent, and so on. But apparently it's impossible for senators to figure out what Mountain Standard Time means versus Eastern Standard Time and to be able to respond to emails. So I'm afraid the chances of me having a senator on this show in the future have become very slim. You only get 2 chances to stand me up on this one. So yes, it's put me off into a crabby mood to start things off to begin with. But that's par for the course for me, isn't it? I'm going to talk to Chris Oldorn in a little bit. He's our opinion editor. We're talking about the woke. We're talking about Saskatchewan. We're talking about politics in general. Lots to cover. As an opinion editor, he's certainly got a lot of opinions to sift through. So be sure to use that comment scroll, guys. Keep this interactive. I see, give me pronounceable names, guys. LZ saying good afternoon from Grand Prairie. Theo from Mission and Alberta Nan for Independence in Fort Mac. People all over the place tuning in. So let's talk about what I want to rant about today. This is going to be the year of the Alberta independence referendum. It's not in question. Advocates for both federalism and independence, they've collected hundreds of thousands of signatures demanding a referendum be held. And it's just time to schedule the voting date and get on with it. The authority to schedule a binding constitutional referendum lands squarely in the office of the Premier. And she might as well just bite that bullet and set the date. I mean, the opponents to independence have morphed their movement from one promoting federalism into one opposing democracy. They're using the courts to try and block Albertans from having a democratic vote, and it's only fostering more division. Their efforts are only going to delay the inevitable at best. I'm not saying a positive vote for independence is inevitable. Hardly. It's a long ways and a lot of work to be done, but holding a referendum is inevitable. It's going to have to happen. The Clarity Act became law in Canada back in 2000. It laid out the process for a province to exit the Federation through a referendum. And the process is a tough one, but it is a legal one, and it's been in place for a generation now. It speaks volumes that Canada accepted this process as a national law when it was under the assumption it would only be applied to Quebec. But when Albertans decided to pursue a referendum, suddenly the ability to do so was brought before the courts. And that double standard illustrates why a third of Albertans are ready to leave in the Federation or more, and that number is growing. The independence movement in Alberta has had its ups and downs since the 80s. It's never been, though, so strong and widely organized as it is today. The 2025 federal election enraged the province, and the fury wasn't short-lived as it has been in the past. Instead, it's been channeled into established activism and a massive petition campaign, actually 2 campaigns, calling for a referendum, one on the pro and one on the against side. In 1995, the message from Canada to Quebec as they headed towards a referendum was, oh, please, please don't go. In 2026, the message to Canada to Albertans, from Canada to Albertans, is you aren't allowed to go. In fact, you're not even allowed to have a vote on the question. That's what it's down to. Not only is that an insulting double standard, but it also sets a dangerous stage. When a movement has momentum with over 1 in 3 people asking for a democratic exercise, and then that democratic mechanism is taken away from them, it doesn't kill the movement. It inspires some people to work towards undemocratic means of change. Albertans at large have no interest in violence, and even if the referendum was blocked, the vast majority of Albertans would never consider such a thing. But let's not be so naive as to believe there aren't at least a handful of unhinged individuals who might consider doing something stupid if they feel there's no other path to change. A referendum releases that sort of pressure. The FLQ vanished in Quebec when they began using democratic pursuits of independence. It would be foolhardy to foster the seeds of such a movement in Alberta by denying the citizens the right to vote. Federalists are claiming the independence discussion in itself will cause massive economic damage due to the instability it would cause, even if a yes vote doesn't happen. Now, that argument fails on 2 counts. I mean, for one, Alberta had $670 billion in energy projects canceled or deferred over a decade due to the federal government's interference. An independence referendum couldn't possibly do more damage than staying the course will. Also, if you want stability, there's no better way to pursue it than to hold a referendum on the issue and get it done with. Do you really think the instability would disappear by removing the ability to hold a referendum? Do they think independence supporters are just going to shrug and give up? The path to stability, whether yes or no on that, is peeling off the Band-Aid and getting it done with. If Federalists are confident support for independence will remain at the 30% range, they should be welcoming a referendum so we can be put to bed. It's time to quit wasting time in the courts. Premier Smith has already said If a question on independence is to be put to referendum, it'll be done on October 9th with the other questions. She might as well take the word if out of that and just schedule the vote. No more asking judges. Tell the chief electoral officer the vote will be held and no other, and to either accommodate it or be replaced by a bureaucrat who will. This is all within the Premier's authority. It doesn't mean Smith supports a yes vote, but it does mean she supports democracy, and I suspect she would phrase it that way. The discussion of Alberta's independence must be held in a full campaign and resolved one way or another now. It's the healthiest path we can take. So quit trying to tell us we can't go. We can. And quit telling us why we shouldn't. Just try telling us actually why we shouldn't choose to if you support federalism. Let's get this campaign going and have that discussion. All right, that's what I'm pissing and moaning about today. How's it going, Dave?
Storms are coming.
Yes, I
30 centimeters of snow.
I've caused a bit of a curse this year.
Oh, is it 3 weeks ago you said spring has finally arrived?
Well, something like that. I've kept my winter tires on too, though.
Well, you're going to need them.
Yeah, I'm going to Delburn tonight.
Where is Delburn? Oh, south.
It's over east of Red Deer.
East of Red Deer. You've been doing a lot of driving.
I've been on the road a lot, yeah.
I heard a rumor that you are giving up this gig and moving to Lacrete.
Yeah, I don't know if I quite go that far. I don't know if I'd make a good Mennonite.
Yeah. But tell me about Lacrete.
Well,
I thought
Lacrete is really cool. Yeah, I
worked so people know where it is, 700 kilometers north of Edmonton.
Yeah, you're getting up towards the Northwest Territories border. And if you look, there's a little hook that comes down. It's truly in the middle of nowhere, south of Fort Vermilion, way up there. I was doing a speaking event up there. I'd worked in the area, but never been to Lacrete itself. And, some of those towns like Fort Vermilion, High Level, Peace River, I mean, they got their nice aspects, but they're getting a little run down and they can be pretty rough. I expected Lacrete to be similar, and I get up there and there's all this farmland opens up and suddenly you pull into this town and everything is brand new. The buildings are new, the businesses are new, there's construction going on, there's new residential districts going on. They've had a growth rate up to 42% in a year at times going on up there. Just a gem hidden in the north. Had great food, really nice people. Again, mostly Mennonites. No liquor stores. Doesn't matter to me anyways, but for those who like it.
No, that would help you.
And no bars that I could see. But just as an unusual little corner of the province, I didn't realize what's going on.
Yeah, so I did a little bit of research, settled by the Mennonites in the 1930s, and a population of about 4,000 now.
Yeah, but I mean, I think in the 80s it only had like a few hundred or 600 or something. So, I mean, it's really explosively grown lately.
See the things you learn watching the CORY Morgan Show.
Yeah, we're going for long, drawn-out drives. And it took us nearly 12 hours to get home with a couple of stops with Jane and I coming back. She came up with me on that one, and we're still married.
Oh, wow. Probably slept the whole way then, I'm thinking.
Well, she just tells me to shut up, and I stare at the road.
There you go. Lots to talk about in the news. Leading off with a disturbing story involving former Professor Francis Widdowson, who as being a long champion of saying the Kamloops residential school graves are a hoax, like you. We have a BC chief on a podcast saying that she wishes Widdowson would be raped so that she could understand the violence that these people or the Indians suffered at residential schools. So not a very nice thing to say. We've got the latest on Paul's Pizza. If you're not a regular reader, the owner of Paul's Pizza put a fairly not very nice tweet out about the acronym Missing Murdered Indigenous LBTGQ LMNOP plus.
Yeah, don't forget the ampersand.
And the ampersand. Saying that he was going to put a special on anybody who identified as these crazy acronyms. And it was pointed out that there starts with missing and murdered Indigenous women, to which he replied, well, I guess they're not getting the special then. So it blew up in his face, and the cancel crowd came out en masse. They put fake reviews on the site. They put fake stories about cockroaches in his kitchen. They contacted his family. One guy sent him pictures of his nephew and nieces because they doxed him. They contacted charities that he gives to. I mean, they put on the full court pressure. So I kind of feel sorry for him.
Well, he kind of knows what he steps into because it's not the first time. And they've been trying for years to shut him down. I don't think they will this time. I mean, it's at this point where the hard left of Airdrie and other areas, there's a few branches of this restaurant, already weren't going. And now you're just bringing more attention to a place, which I'll say it, they got good pizza there.
Yeah.
It really is good food. I mean, if it's crappy food, I wouldn't say anything.
I got one down near my place in South Calgary, so I think I'm going to go on Saturday and show my support.
Yeah, if you like all meat pizzas where they just pack it thick with meat and then really brown that cheese on it, that's what they do it there. It's like, it's not healthy, but damn, it's good eating.
I'm a ham and pineapple guy.
Well, that's a separate discussion altogether. But I'm certain their Hawaiian is probably good as well.
Probably pretty good
as far as those go.
We've got a story on an Ontario judge who hasn't read the playbook. Obviously, he's saying he's concerned that immigrant criminals are getting a better deal than Canadian criminals, saying justice should be done by all. We got our BC reporter, Alex Zoltan. There's been lots of controversy out there in the BC leadership race, accusations of lying and all sorts of nasty stuff. So he's got a column, I think, with the headline saying, with friends like these, who needs enemies? And how the BC conservatives can destroy themselves with infighting, which conservatives tend to do, right?
It seems the conservatives love turning their guns inward. It's just seems to be the nature of.
Yeah. We got some wild video on the website of a mass road rage brawl in Edmonton yesterday. Occupants of 4 cars got out and started beating the hell out of each other right on the boulevard between the 2 roads. And it's a pretty good video, pretty fun video.
Yeah, I'll have to check that one.
And have you, in your road trips recently, have you stopped at 7-Eleven? Bought yourself a sub or a sandwich?
No, thankfully, I've just been getting the coffees, and I've been tempted to try, because they keep going on about that Japanese egg salad sandwich. You know, everybody's been talking about that, and I haven't gotten one yet. No, maybe I won't.
No. There's a big recall because the subs and the sandwiches have got listeria or some other disease. So, and the best story of the day, Toronto. And I'm going to get this story up after the meeting. Toronto has decided they're going to give away thousands of trees to, get the canopy going bigger in Toronto. But if you're white, you can't have a tree.
Oh, God.
And if your neighbor is white, you can't have a tree.
Well, are they going to maybe get, like equity cards for neighbors and so on, like the NDP?
Yeah.
And, you can turn it in for what you may or may not get in civil services. Oh, my Lord, they're insane.
But it's about one of the wokest things I've ever seen. It's crazy.
Brilliant. Well, keep it in Toronto.
Yeah, as long as the madness stays down there.
Well, I'll let you back into the newsroom to keep writing that dark comedy on the woke and the pushbacks on it, and appreciate the updates. I hope the snow I brought isn't too excessive.
If I get stuck, I'm calling you.
Okay.
You can come and push me out.
We'll see what I can do.
There you go.
All right. Thanks, Dave. Is our news editor, Dave Naylor, and yes, lots on the go. Some funny. Again, a lot of it's kind of dark funny, isn't it? With the stuff with Farouk and other things, but that's how insane the world is. Look, this is the time I like to remind you, get on there, subscribe. The reason we got people like Dave or Chris, who's going to be on in a few minutes here, and myself, is because you've been subscribing. So keep us independent. westernstandard.news/subscription, $10 a month, $100 per year. Get past those paywalls and help us keep getting those stories going. And there's so many. I just want to hit a quick run through some of the comments. Lots today, which is great. I might have to catch up after I talk to Chris with some of those. My thoughts on Carney saying he'll use the Emergencies Act to stop independence. I heard about that, but I haven't seen it properly sourced yet. I don't know. I don't think it'd be able to do anything. It's not like a concentrated emergency. Well, emergency, that's a separate discussion. But in, say, Ottawa, in a small spot, if you had a majority of a province vote to go, what exactly would he be able to do with the Emergencies Act? Just a reminder, search through the Western Standard. There was a great long story written on that. Pardon me. That we have more generals than tanks in Canada. We really do. We have like 14 operational tanks. I don't think it's going to come to anything like that in Canada, but let's get realistic. Canada's military can't do much except come and throw tampons at Albertans while the Albertans chase them back out. So I wouldn't worry much about that, though I do worry when Carney talks about bringing foreign people into the Canadian military. Lots of other folks saying hello from Calgary and so on. I'll go through some more of these comments because there's just lots to talk about today, but I want to bring in our opinion editor, Chris Oldorn, from Saskatchewan, and let's chat about some of the stuff happening out there. How's it going, Chris?
Hey, it's going well. How are you, Corey?
Good. It's been a while since I've had you on. We're overdue.
Yes.
And I guess
it's a fun one.
Yeah. Well, as I said, there's so much dark comedy in that sense that's led to other things you might have heard with
Yeah.
Dave's news update. So let's start with that. You wrote just on the absurdity and the insanity of the woke with that hyper
Yes.
long acronym. How many letters does it take before you can't even call it an acronym anymore? From Leah, most of us
Yeah.
have seen that, but give us a recap. What happened there?
It is technically 15 letters plus the plus sign. So it's 16 digits long, which I had mentioned my piece could be a Guinness Book of World Record for the length of an acronym. And basically what happened was a NDP MP, Leah Gazin, she was doing a press conference about some funding cuts to Indigenous organizations that the Liberals did in their budget this year. And so what happened was she got up and she said this big long acronym because she decided to put the murdered and missing Indigenous women into the, we'll call it sexual minority acronym, LGBTQ, etc., and put it and smush it all together, even though missing and murdered Indigenous women has absolutely nothing to do with sexuality or transgenderism. So I'm not sure where her mind was when she decided that was a good idea to put it together. Even one senator said that she would not use that acronym. She would continue to use the other ones because this one doesn't make sense. And the other interesting thing is too, the NDP seems to have a hard time defining what a woman is, but they put woman into the acronym, which I thought was kind of weird because it's literally a party that if you ask them what a woman is, they can't even define it. And she put it in and totally changed what the acronym is. Like there's even a plus sign at the end. Like what's a plus? Like a furry or something? Like in case she missed something, she put a plus at the end in case 16 letters wasn't enough. Like it's unbelievable some of this stuff, especially if you go back. Their convention a week before was a joke too.
And did they have two S in there? I can't
Yes.
remember now because that's okay because that's supposed to be
Yes.
the two-spirited thing, and
That's the two-spirit. Yeah.
they become redundant as they try to cover all their ground and contradict themselves. And it was a great follow-up from their own convention.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that? In looking at opinion and everything, the federal NDP, the CCF, Saskatchewan, that was the heartland of populist, I guess, democratic socialism, you could say. But boy, what on earth is this today? I see that Saskatchewan's NDP leader has been the most vociferous in saying, I have nothing to do with these clowns. Is that party done in Saskatchewan federally, you think?
Well, the Sask NDP, like the provincial party, they're in opposition here. We only have two parties in Saskatchewan, basically, that get elected, which is the Sask party, which is our sort of version of the Conservative Party, and then you have the Sask NDP. I do know that Karlebek has almost no direct contact with Jagmeet Singh for a long time. Like there was nothing going on between the two of them. Even at their convention a couple of years ago, when he was still the leader of the NDP, they brought him in on a Zoom call. They didn't even actually bring him into the convention, which is what normally would happen. And I've talked to several Sask NDP MLAs who have told me off the record that they have no connection to the federal party and that they have absolutely, their policies are so different. Like for example, the NDP here in the province is not like super anti-oil or anything. Like they're for responsible use of getting oil out of the ground and mining and stuff. All the things that actually drive the Saskatchewan economy. The two parties, if you lined them up federally and provincially, it would not look like the same party. Like even after Lewis got in as the leader, Karlebek the next day put out a press release saying we disagree with X, Y, Z, and made a full list of no, we don't agree with anything that the federal party is basically doing. There is basically no connection between the two right now.
Yeah, no spoken connection, but one thing that is a connection that both Ned Nitschke and Karlebek can't avoid, and I'm sure Scott Moe and Daniel Smith in Alberta, they're just going to keep hammering them with that, though, is constitutionally they're tied together. Even if it's not functionally used that way, it's hard to deny that you're beholden to them when it's written right in your thing. Do you think there might be a move for Beck to finally formally say, you know what, we've got to break away and be fully independent from the federal entity?
Well, Saskatchewan's a weird province that way. They tend to, once they vote a party out, they basically never vote it back in. They just, like the Sask Party, when it was founded, it was a combination of people who left both the Conservative and the Liberal Party, like the Progressive Conservative Party. And actually, the Progressive Conservative Party still exists in the province. They just don't get elected. But it was a merger of the two because it's the only way they were ever going to beat the NDP, because they were just back then, and this was 25 years ago, Liberal Party and Conservative Party were kind of closer before all the stuff that's happened in the last 10 years or so, where there's been drastic change. I mean, we used to talk about the parties all trying to sit on the center seat, and now no one wants the center seat. Politics has changed drastically since the Sask Party came into existence. So it wouldn't surprise me, because even in the last election, we had a new Conservative Party called Sask United here. They did fairly well. We have the Buffalo Party. They did fairly well. Like they came in second in a lot of ridings, both the Buffalo and the Sask United Party. Neither one got anyone elected, but they did. They got significant percentage of the vote. I don't know if the Sask NDP would rename or not. If they did, I think they'd want to do it a couple of years before an election, and then people would get to know the name ahead of time. But yeah, it's definitely a weight around the Sask NDP to be connected to the federal NDP.
So coming up for our viewers from outside of Saskatchewan, though, I mean, how is Scott Moe doing? He's becoming kind of more of one of the senior premiers in Canada now. Actually, he's been in for a fair amount of time. Eventually, every political leader starts to kind of wear thin on the supporters and so on. Are there indications he might be looking to move along, or is he still hanging in there? And is his popularity still strong?
His popularity is still strong. If there was another election today, the Sask Party would still be in, probably somewhere around the same amount of seats. It's funny, I actually asked him, not this Christmas, but the Christmas interview before that, what he wanted to do after politics. And he had never been asked that question before. I found it after. They never even prepped him for that question because it was just assumed he was going to be here forever. I just thought it'd be interesting to find out what he wanted to do after politics, because of what he had done before, and he's been in politics for, at that point, I mean, he's been in about 15, 16 years now. He's been leader since 2017, so he's coming up on 10 years as leader as well. And his popularity is good. Like people like Scott Moe. I mean, there are issues in the province, healthcare in particular, we're having a lot of issues with. But at the same time, I think people are getting a lot of slack because the same problem is happening in every other province. So it's not like people are like, oh, well, it's so bad here, but it's so much better next door in Manitoba or Alberta. It's like everybody has the same problem: recruiting, retaining staff, etc. So because it's a problem across Canada, it's not the same weight on his popularity and on the Sask Party, because I think people kind of understand it's a Canada-wide issue. It's not just a Saskatchewan issue. So a lot of the ways that his popularity, and particularly the Sask Party's popularity, could go down, it's not, just because I think people are understanding of how the issue is across Canada. And I'm not sure he's going to run again in 2028 at the next provincial election, or he'll step down before that, because at that point he'll be going on 12 years as leader. And that's a long time to stay leader of a party. I mean, sometimes people just need a change of face at the top, like they did when Brad Wall left and Scott Moe came in. So I don't know if he's going to make it to 2028, but probably.
Yeah, there's a lot of parallels between Saskatchewan and Alberta and in our politics and in our views. And the independence movement in Saskatchewan has been simmering at a similar level, 20-30% perhaps. It's not insignificant. And we've got now a Carney majority, which I imagine has upset some conservative-leaning Saskatchewan's residents and so on. But there isn't a vent for the independence movement in Saskatchewan right now, though I don't think there's as much of the ground organization kind of pushing yet, but they're getting together. There's no mechanism to petition and try to invoke a referendum. But the Saskatchewan Prosperity Project, they have been holding meetings and trying to build that base so they can pressure the Moe government. Do you think at some point Scott Moe might bring in citizens initiative legislation to kind of at least take that pressure off his flank?
Well, the polls actually have shown that support for independence in Saskatchewan was actually higher than Alberta.
Mhm.
And that's without much an organization. Now the Sask Prosperity Project has been doing some events. I was at another event a while back, and it was at one of the larger convention halls here in Regina. Part of it was talking about independence, and then it was like a conservative type convention done by a group here that does once a year they do a weekend, and they bring in speakers. Sometimes they're in person, sometimes they're on Zoom. So I was there actually covering it as a journalist. But yeah, there was a couple independent speakers there, and I was at another event run by the Buffalo Party that was also independence conference. It was well attended. So both those ones that I went to were sold out, and they were ones that you had to pay to go to. The free ones, like the Sask Prosperity is doing, like they're filling up whatever space they can get. So I think there's an appetite for it, particularly now that people feel like Carney kind of like stole his way into a majority because we didn't elect a Liberal majority government. It was by 5 people leaving their parties and going over to the Liberals that did it. And I can tell you, I was at an event last night. People were not happy. And it wasn't even a political event that I was at. They were just not happy at how Carney got his majority. They were very displeased.
And that's what I mean. But you see, and there's a hazard that something like the Buffalo Party or something like that could start gaining a foothold. It's my view, I believe, anyways. I mean, independence parties in Alberta haven't been able to do that, though some people have tried. But it's because the independence movement's focused on a petition. It's kept their energy on that, and rather than going after the government in power, I would think there's a hazard of something forming that could be a vote splitter, anyways, for the Sask Party if they can't give a mechanism to those people who want to pursue independence. So it's just kind of why I was wondering if maybe they would be looking at bringing something like, it's a balancing act, because of course, the opposition will say, well, if you're bringing that in, it means you support independence. Well, not necessarily. Yes. It just means you're supporting having that vote. And it doesn't seem to be hurting Premier Smith. They've been calling her a separatist solidly for 6 months now, and her support's climbing. So
yeah, I mean, Scott Moe has been questioned during question period in the legislature about whether or not he would support an independence petition or whatever in the province and allow it to go to a referendum. And he has said that he's, for the time being, he has not made any indication that he would support Saskatchewan leaving Canada. However, he has said that he would support the will of the people if there was enough signatures to run a referendum. Here in Saskatchewan, there's actually, even if you get enough signatures on a petition, it still has to be approved by the governments to actually go to a referendum. It doesn't automatically trigger it. So there's that in it as well. So they've even been asked, like, well, if there's enough signatures to do a referendum, would you allow it? And once again, the answer there was, we'll do whatever the will of the people is. So he's not going to stand in the way, but he's not out there championing it either.
Yeah, no, it's a difficult balancing act. They're both kind of playing the same. Again, it's just been interesting to watch how both provinces are moving so similarly. So, before I let you go, I mean, you're covering all things opinion as well as the opinion editor, and watching things in Saskatchewan. What should we be watching you for and your province for in the next coming days?
Well, the Sask legislature is still sitting right now. However, there's not much exciting stuff going on. Budget's already kind of been presented and going through. For the opinion, we have a ton of stuff coming in on Carney from all kinds of different angles with how he got his majority. We already have a couple up, including former opinion editor Nigel Hannaford's. His was up earlier today on the Conservatives, and basically his argument is like, you got to vet these candidates better because you got 4 that jumped ship since November and gave Carney the majority. So that's an excellent read. Go read Nigel's column. It's very interesting. But yeah, there's other columns up there as well that are connected to Carney. And then we also have some other ones on some other issues coming up too that are very important. A lot of stuff on independence related stuff, as well as we got a couple on education coming up that'll be up on the weekend that are quite interesting.
Right on. Well, I know you've got your hands full in a lot of content that you're working through, so I appreciate you taking some time to talk to us today about, your own one that came out recently, and just stuff out in Saskatchewan that we don't watch nearly closely as we should. So thank you for that, and thank you for keeping on all that opinion content for us. And I'm sure we'll talk again soon, Chris.
Sounds good. Thank you very much, Corey.
All right, thanks. So that is our opinion editor, Chris Oldorn. And yeah, much like Dave, just running hard, lots on the go, things are happening. So yeah, Saskatchewan, a lot of parallels. Let's get through some of these comments. Again, Carol Scobie saying it can snow every month in the year in Alberta. There's some truth to that. It's not unique that it's happening in April, but it just keeps happening over and over and over and over again. If it would just give us a bit of a break. Save Canada 123 saying 50% plus one is all it takes to join Canada, and that's all it takes to leave. Some people have talked about that when we're talking about independence votes and things, because, that was kind of the formula for Newfoundland to come in. But getting realistic, a couple of things. The Clarity Act says a clear majority, not a simple majority. 50% plus one is a simple majority. And unfortunately, it's one area where the Clarity Act isn't very clear at all, because, well, what's a clear majority? I just want to talk about pragmatically, realistically. If it's under 55%, it's not going to happen. I'm just saying that. There will be so many challenges, protests, pushbacks, things going on. It will be mired in that for years. It would go much like Brexit. Whereas Brexit got the momentum, they got it moving, they got it across the line, and then things never really kind of came together afterwards because they didn't have a strong enough mandate to push back on the politicians who were fighting it from within. So just an independent supporter should be shooting for 55 to 60% to be realistic if you're really looking to get out. The worst we could possibly get would be 50% plus one, because it does put everything, make it stall and go on hold. But it doesn't get us there. Let's see. CBC doesn't, the Conservative Party doesn't want Alberta to separate. Well, no, they're a federal party. And it's just, people going after Smith saying she should come out in support of independence, or Polyev. That's why we don't bother with the party system with independence. It has to be advocates. They're not going to come out in support of it. They can't. It's not their mandate. But, we still need to also have a provincial government and do what we can with our federal MPs until a province becomes independent. So, be a little pragmatic, but they're not going to come out in support of it. Barbie Hill saying, had a great time in Crete with Corey. Yeah, great to see you up there, Barbie. Appreciate the work and everything you guys are doing in the north. I tell you, that's where the hub of great people and independence movement is. It's strong up there. Let's see what else we got here. I like Pierre, but this is a far deeper movement. It's for the children and future generations. Sorry, Pierre, but Canada's toast. Yeah, people are frustrated. They're throwing their hands up, especially when we see the majority. This is the very first time a majority government has come through just floor crossers. Just floor crossers. Floor crossers have been around. They've come and gone over the years. They've impacted governments, impacted policy, but not to the point of actually changing the government from a minority to a majority. And yeah, that's got a lot of people pretty ticked off, especially when you get pure, gross, opportunistic ones like Gladue. Look, Jenneru in Edmonton, he was always a liberal anyways. He was just looking for a way to get a seat. He always was. I'm surprised he lasted as long as he did before he crossed. Gladue, though, an established conservative, been there for over 10 years, I believe. More conservative than me in most regards, socially for sure. And then joining the Liberals? Oh, they offered her something nice. Let's not pretend. They offered her something nice. That builds cynicism. That builds a sense of futility. And that is what leads to things like an independence movement. We've had it. And that's why, again, some people might like Polyev or others, but they're just saying, what's the point anymore, right? There's somebody saying Smith will do whatever Queen Charles tells her to do. I ain't sure where you're going there. Okay. Either way, the monarchy, that came up in the question the other night. I was speaking in Hilda last night. I didn't get home till 2 in the morning. The monarchy is irrelevant. It really is. It's just a past thing. It's for the people thinking the king could stop independence, or it's just as bad as those indigenous people going over thinking he can step in. He can't. He won't. It's irrelevant. Let's get into contemporary times and talk about what we're doing. We're breaking out of a system here. Joel saying Paul's Pizza is great. No press is bad press. So yeah, the owner of Paul's Pizza, and there's some of the things I get a chuckle out of. And he's got a pretty narrowly sense of humor, with the joke he made about the MMLBQWXYZ. But whatever, he's been going on for years with this. He was on my show a couple of years ago. You could see the old one about that. These guys have come after him. But his name is Farouk. And he keeps getting called a white nationalist. I just get a chuckle out of that. I mean, I don't know. I don't have the NDP equity card handy to see what the point system is. But as far as I can tell, Farouk ain't a white bread sort of fella. But that's always the immediate response to the left, isn't? That's all they've got. That's all they go is just keep throwing that out there, smearing that out there for battery. Well, it's falling flat. And people like Joel pointing out it's great pizza and no press is bad press. Well, sometimes there's bad press, but it's still, at this point, I think a lot more people are going out and testing the pizza out than anything that was lost, because most people don't care and they are sick of the idiocy and acronyms and endless victimhood. When we talk about that missing and murdered Aboriginal Indigenous woman thing, I mean, that's been one of those other failures. That's a Trudeau initiative. They put the whole commission together, all the works, and realistically, whatever happened, because they really thought it was some sort of conspiracy, right? There's been people stealing Indigenous women and raping them and murdering them and hiding them, and they've been unsolved, and the authorities aren't trying to track down who did it and all of this. And what did it turn out to be? It did turn out there are more women going missing and being murdered in the Indigenous community. But the solve rate for those murders and such is as high or higher for the Indigenous woman as for anybody else. And it's because most of the crimes are committed by other Indigenous people. That's the conclusion, that it wasn't a white nationalist conspiracy. It was massive social disorder and distress and the horrific nightmare that's going on in the reserves. Abused, neglected, impoverished, troubled, and drug abusing young ladies are often running off from the reserve. You saw them in the Vancouver's Lower East Side 30 years ago, and you're still seeing them today, and it's getting worse because we keep hanging on to this broken, ridiculous system of apartheid we call the Indian Reserve System. So get used to it. Quit trying to blame Whitey for it. It's the system, guys, and it's not going away. But then they make it sacred, right? They make it the way you can't even question that acronym is as absurd as it was when an MP puts it out, because then you're dissing these poor murdered and missing Indigenous women. No, we aren't. But people are pushing back against the stupid narrative, the tiresome narrative that keeps trying to blame everyone else rather than just accepting that we got to change this system or it's going to get worse. It's going to get worse. And I drove on the way to Hilda yesterday. Hilda's way over north of onto the Saskatchewan border for Medicine Hat. I went through because it's straight through and it's a public highway, the Siksika Reserve, those clowns who've charged me with trespassing. I took a couple pictures on my way through from the public highway, guys. The houses are still falling apart. Garbage is still all over. The wild dogs are still running around, boarded up places, junk on the lawns. They just got $1.3 billion from Trudeau 4 years ago. What happened? Where's it gone? I don't know. But it sure hasn't gone to building houses. I thought I was in Tijuana for a minute. But it was windier and there weren't palm trees. So we got to start questioning these things. We got to stop letting these activists, these chiefs, these losers, and these Leah Gazan say we can't talk about it. And canceling somebody like Farouk, or trying to, with his pizza place because he mocked it. Oh well, maybe don't give him the material to work with. Let's see. I don't know. Weird. We never used to have these problems. Just trying to catch up on the comments. Republic of Alberta, Ruckine Hound. Yeah, okay. Say that it solved a lot of problems for Albertans. Maybe. Jay, the Albertans say 58% of people might be against us, but if half of them don't turn up the vote, it won't matter. Okay, here's something with the independence movement as well to keep in mind. When Quebec held their referendum, 93% of people came out. With something this big, this important, people are going to come out. It's going to be a high turnout referendum. It's going to be big. You got to win it. Somebody else pointed out the 42% number. We're seeing polls all over the place. I keep saying 30 because you know what? I've seen them as low as 20. I saw that 42. I don't believe the 42. I don't believe the 20. When the spread is that huge, that 42, if you break down that poll, comes more into people saying, would you vote that way as a negotiating tool rather than wanting to go? When you start asking questions in polls that get that long, guys, those are leading and they're push polls. And to be honest, they're not terribly accurate. The reality is, though, independent support is stronger than ever. It does have momentum. And it's growing. As I said, with the Brexit thing, very possible that it could move on into an independence vote, a positive one coming. But it's up to us. We will see what happens. Somebody saying they're getting too old for this nonsense. I hear you. Boy, we got a lot of comments today. I really appreciate it. Be patient with me as I scroll through it. Canada's broken, a common one. Troglodyte saying Ottawa can either let Alberta go peacefully or, and then the dots. Yeah, I don't know. The main thing, the strength has to be in a solid, large vote. You got to win. Again, that's what we're talking about, 55, 60% or more. I would rather, and I know some people get upset and debate with me, I'd rather see 48 than 52. Because with 48, we can keep things rolling, having another one in 4 or 6 years and probably turn that into the 55 or 60 or more we need. But 52, that's a disaster. That puts it on the shelf for years. That's the instability we're going to have to worry about. Somebody else saying, why do you think the confiscation's ramping up? Yeah, they're coming for the firearms, but they're failing. That's another fun program to talk about, isn't it? They want it, but nobody's participating. This is going to fail, just like every other initiative that's come out of them recently. We could be critical of the provincial government and things. Here's one of the areas I want to hit on a bit, and that's the gas tax, the fuel tax in Alberta, with Premier Smith not cutting it. All right. This is where you want to get on the provincial government's case rather than, she should be outright becoming an independence supporter. There's one of the more clownish people who heads the independence movement in some ways and speaks for it quite often. And he's just got an incredible chip on his shoulder when it comes to Premier Smith, wasting a lot of energy going after her when he really should just stick to putting out, try to get that yes vote. Either way, there's things that Smith needs to be criticized on, not trying to turn her into an open secessionist. But why on earth is she not cutting the gas tax? Come on. I don't care, because they're saying we got our own law and we don't cut it until July 1st. You guys write the law. You've got a majority. And you're also, for every dollar the price of a barrel of oil rises, the Alberta government gets about $700 million in their budget. Okay? And I understand that's over the course of a year, but still, we're talking oil has gone up by $60, $70 and has been hanging there, and it's going to for a while. We can afford to cut the gas tax. And if you can't afford to cut the gas tax, it really does mean you're spending way, way, way too much. So cut some spending, be conservative. That's the critique we need. And that's how we need to keep pushing her on her. Let's see. I support any independence for... if people vote for independence parties, there's a fear of the NDP slipping into power again. I hear you. And it's not just a fear. Thankfully, the only real kind of party going is the Republican Party, and it's led by a knob, and it's not going anywhere. But if Smith doesn't allow a referendum to get going, I don't think the Republican Party will get anywhere, but somebody rational and reasonable might get up and form something, and that could split that vote, and that could set things way back. So just watch this movement. Watch it as an activist rather than a party activist, though, because you're just going to cause more damage than you want. One more thing, and that's been in there, and we're looking into some of that. Let's get on with some of our fine folks on the Indigenous reserves, because it's a huge issue, and we need to have the courage to talk about them. There's a chief up in Fort Mac or Fort Chip or up there somewhere claiming that the cancer rates are way above for Indigenous people and everybody else. Well, they are, but they are in every reserve, not just up there. He's blaming it on oil and gas. And of course, it was his own study that he commissioned to find this alleged rise in cancer rates. Guys, Indigenous people suffer from higher cancer rates on every reserve in Canada. And let's get to the point. They're socially distressed. Go onto a reserve and meet some of the people. That's why I shoot the videos on there, and let's show it. And what's happening? Well, they're chain smoking, living on Cheetos and cornflakes and pop. They're drinking a lot. These things all cause a lot of cancer, more so than other areas. You want to get upset with me? Prove otherwise. Anybody who's claiming that's not true has not been on a reserve. As well, if the oil sands was causing higher cancer rates, it would be hitting everybody on the reserve, on the river up there and throughout that area, not just that reserve. All we're seeing is somebody else throwing something else, just like the hoax and Kamloops. Let's make a fake myth about things that are happening and then ask for more money. They always do. $12 million to try and find bodies without actually looking. Here's a neat one. Oh, geez, a commenter, let's leave it at that, saying, respect our treaties. And that's what I'm doing. Your treaty said that 98.7% of Alberta is forever permanently ceded. You can keep your 1.3%. The rest of us are leaving. Pay your own bloody bills. All right, I'll leave it at that happy note. Guys, thank you very much for tuning in today. Well, make sure to watch the pipeline tonight and check this out next week at this time. I really appreciate all those comments. I couldn't keep up with them today. That's the way I like to see it happening. Lots of interaction because there's lots going on and I can learn some lessons here too. So thanks for tuning in. See you next week at this time.